This has been an interesting debate, and I suppose I'm a bit nervous about speaking, in as much as the noble Lord's story assures us that he sees this register and his work as supportive, not punitive, for homeschoolers. But it is the case, if that's the intention, they haven't got the message, because there is great concern at the moment, and despite the previous contribution that said not all of the emails that one receives are from represent all homeschoolers, that's true, but there is sufficient anxiety being created by this bill that I think that it would be wrong for the government not to take note of it. I'm personally with Professor Eileen Munro, who's been raised already, that I'm opposed to a large part of Part 3, but trying to kind of intervene more specifically in this section of amendments. I think it is just important to keep stressing this key point the noble Lord Knight raised, which is that parents have a right to home education, and they don't have to apologise or explain in a free society. It's not something to be ashamed of. It might be a minority pursuit. A lot of us might think it's a bit quirky, but in a free society, unless the government are changing this, that is their free right. And I think that they're feeling as though they're being told that they have to explain why they're doing it, and they're going to be intruded upon, and that in the course of it they're being demonised as well, which is why I actually supported a lot of the noble Lord Knight's qualms that he raised. It's also why I support Amendment 175 in this group, which is Baroness Jones of Mulscombe, who I think a review of home education would at least give us an opportunity to look at it in the round a bit more, because it feels as though there might be some dangerous or unintended consequences here. I'm afraid that despite the noble Lord Storey's assurances that his first and second groups feel as though they're being punished for fears that are concentrated on the third group, as it were. That small group that might not be in schools, that one part of whom he described as being radicalised, and we had kind of images, and we all know what we're talking about in terms of madrasas and fundamentalists of Christian, Jewish or Islamic faiths, and that's no reflection on those faiths per se. But I think there is a danger here that this small group is then being used to kind of attack the reputations of everybody else. But I also want to raise, even in relation to those groups, that we do have to be careful about kind of using the terms religious fundamentalists as a dismissive, dangerous model as well, because I happen to, as an atheist, stand for religious freedom, and we have to be careful we don't just dismiss that. And it's also the case that fundamentalism these days is used very promiscuously to describe people with a different set of values or ideology, whether it's religious or political or philosophical. So they're the kind of things that I'm concerned about. But my greatest fear, which I talked about when I did my second what's it called, speech, that one, thank you, sorry, second reading speech, is I fear an unintended slur that this is all about safeguarding children and the welfare of children. And in some of the contributions so far, we've kind of gone from loneliness to physical abuse to cigarette burns, and the idea that, you know, there are children being kept at home so that they will be abused and they won't be seen by social services. But I think we have to be careful not to simply make safeguarding a matter of children who are not in school, because many children who are in school and in plain sight are missed in terms of abuse by social services, by the authorities. This is the bigger and greater problem, it seems to me. And there's an irony that some children are actually being withdrawn from schools precisely for safeguarding reasons, that parents, for whatever reason, feel that their children are not safe in school because of bullying, because of particular ideas of how they're taught, and things that we're familiar with. So, as I say, I'm no fan of deschooling. I actually don't like that deschooling movement. I've argued against it many times. I think school is a hugely vibrant, important part important part of socialising children and our passing on over to the generations. But I just think in a free society we have to be careful. Just finally, while a register sounds sensible, I think it's right that we raise concerns about data tracking and surveillance, and those people who have indicated that we can't just allow data collection to happen without asking some questions about why it's needed, how it's going to be used. I do know the obsession with data collection in schools themselves turn people into data points, often replaces actually professional judgment with data collection, drives lots of teachers mad, and I don't necessarily think always helps. And I also just feel that in the name of autonomy of home education, we have to just be careful that this doesn't become yet another centralising part of this bill with unintended consequences.